A warm welcome to all of you, wherever you might be tuning in from. You're tuning in from across the U.S. Glad to have you on today. It is 10:26 a.m. here in the United States Central Time. It is 6:26 East African Time. So delighted to have you here on the show today. So as we continue this conversation around driving a positive diaspora narrative, today we're going to engage in a very interesting discussion for the next 2.5 hours. But we'll begin with a very interesting topic, and we'll be going to Kenya, where we're going to bring in one of the media personalities there. Again, as you noted from the previous weeks, we've had guests from Kenya talking about politics, talking about government, talking about businesses, and also about media. But today we want to focus on another interesting topic that is very dear to many, and that is sports, the role of sports in social and economic development. In that discussion today, we're honored to have on the show one of the very best of all time, journalist from Kenya, Elias Macaulay. His resume is so rich that I cannot be able to go through the entire resume, but just a quick highlight that he is currently the senior editor with the senior editor for sports in the Nation Media Group in Nairobi, a major newspaper across the continent of Africa. So we're honored to have him here. He's got distinguished career, I think, over the last 28 years, a person I've personally followed right from when I was a very young man. But no doubt we're going to engage in a very interesting conversation. We'll be talking about the state of sports in Kenya. We'll be talking about athletics, soccer. We'll be talking about the role of the media. We'll also be talking about what the Diasporans can do in developing sports back in Africa, and many other questions that we might have. Meanwhile, if you have any questions for Elias, please feel free to make those comments on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. But for now, here's the man of the hour. Yes, but Elias, Ujambo.
Ujambo, how are you doing? How is your day?
Very good. So it's good. Those who don't understand whether I'm just simply saying, how are you? So, hey, Elias, look, before I even start asking you any question, let me begin this. And I know every Kenyan across the US and around the world really are always interested in what's happening in Kenya. So I know for me, I miss a lot of my talkers in Kisii. I miss Nyama Choma. What else are we missing?
Of course, the fine weather. It's been raining for the last few weeks, but the weather is brilliant, and looking forward to another exciting week. A lot of sports coming up this week, especially.
Very good to hear. So the next question I might ask you, and before I even ask you, like I said in the intro, I'm one of your biggest admirers from the time I was a young man. Watching you, your work in the media was fantastic. So I want to appreciate you for the wonderful, incredible work you've done actually for not just sports, but the media for the country, I think, for the last almost 3 decades. So I know many people follow you will appreciate this, that we salute you for the wonderful job you've done over the years and will continue to do so. Okay, so do you mind introducing yourself very quickly again for just what you do at the moment?
Well, actually, I wear many hats, but all of them in sports. At the moment, like you said, I'm the editor in charge of sports at the Nation Media Group. As you know, we have various outlets. We have the Daily Nation, we have the East African Taifa Leo, we have the Business Daily, and also we have the NTV, the television channel, plus of course we have Nation FM, that's our radio channel. So those are the properties that we have in Nation Media Group, and of course we are across in Uganda and Tanzania with sister newspapers there. And I'm basically my role is to take care of sports, and that's what I've been doing, like you rightly said, for about 3 decades now. I joined the Nation Media Group in 1992. That's the end of the year. And before that, of course, I was just an aspiring young journalist, and I decided to sport as my main area of focus, because I believe it's always good to specialize in something and try and be good at it, so that the audiences can really maximize on your experience. Yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment. And also I'm helping out in various areas, like this coming weekend. We have a major international track and field meeting called the Keno Classic. I'm also head of meet for that. We are looking to getting quite a number of good athletes coming to Nairobi on Saturday for that competition. It's part of a global circuit, and it's the first one in Africa. And just His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta opened the Nyayo National Stadium, which has been refurbished, and this will be the first major event. And it will also be the first major, international engagement in Kenya after this COVID disaster. So really, it will be a shop window for the world to look into Kenya through the eyes of sport. The athletes will come. It will be on global television. That's from 4 p.m. Kenyan time up to 6 p.m. Kenyan time. So the whole world will be watching. And this is an opportunity for the world to look at Kenya through sports. And that I always maintain that sports is a very, very important aspect in our society. This is going to be an opportunity for Kenya to say, hey, we are open for business, and it's being done through sports. And also the following day on Sunday, we have the London Marathon of a huge team of Kenyan athletes. And as we speak, there's an aircraft on the tarmac in Eldoret which has come to pick Eliud, a specially chartered plane from London. So that shows how big sport is and how big Kenya is in sport, and that's what I'm engaged in.
And no doubt, actually, Kenya, it's a sporting nation. And I think one of the titles that any Kenyan around the world can be very proud of is the fact that we do extremely well. And we'll be engaging into deeper conversation around that. So the other question I want to ask you before we go even further, I'm a fanatic of soccer. And I have to admit that we're having this show when my team, Manchester City, is playing. So it's really kind of frustrating, but also okay. So how are you dealing with COVID-19? I hate to imagine that we go to stadiums without fans, but how are you guys dealing with the COVID-19 so far from your end?
Well, actually, it's a bit of a complicated scenario. I say complicated because I was also in a committee. I was appointed by the Minister of Sport, Honorable Amina Mohammed, to look into the resumption of sports protocols. And a week ago, she read out our report where we were recommending a phased return of sports, meaning that yes, sports is reopening, but in phases, beginning with the low contact sports, like lawn tennis, sports where there is no really physical engagement, and the risks of COVID-19 will be low. And then also we'll be looking at opening up gradually other sports as the federations continue putting into place measures that will help keep COVID-19 at bay, like clean sanitization, making sure that the players, the evacuation systems are in good well arranged in case of any emergencies. And also the spectators are safe, so that there's social distancing. So it's a really phased opening of the sports. But again, it's very difficult because on one hand, we are saying let us be measured in opening, where you find sports like have not been given the green light. But on the other hand, we're seeing political rallies attended by thousands of people where there's no social distancing. So the same leaders who are preaching water are actually drinking wine by, gathering large assemblies, which is a major risk regarding COVID-19. So we are looking at a phased return, and hopefully soon football will be back. People are waiting for the local league. The clubs are really struggling because there are no finances. There was a government subsidy put in place where they're giving each player about 10,000 shillings per month just to cushion them over this period. But even that was not for the entire period. So yeah, people are waiting for something enough so that perhaps the revenues can come in. Like our athletes have not been competing on the global circuit. They have not earned any money since March. So it's really a difficult period.
Okay, that's good. Get into that in a moment. So good news that as I'm talking to you, I'm so happy that my team has just scored. So Riyad Mahrez just scored a spectacular goal against Leicester. That made me even more happier. So I think we're going to win. So for the sake of the Diasporans who are watching this, and of course everybody is so intrigued into sports, want to know, how do you summarize the state of sports in Kenya in 2, 3, 4 sentences? How do you summarize it so far? I think you've been in sports for a very long time, but how do you summarize that?
Well, we are still very far. We are still very far. There's a lot of potential, but sport needs to go the professional way, like you have in the US, for example, in Europe, where it's taken as a full time career by people. Slowly but slowly, we are getting there. Like I said, on Saturday we have the first track and field meeting of international standard in Kenya, and this will go on for 3 years. So it's a 3-year period. We also have the World Rally Championship, the Safari Rally getting back onto the World Rally Championship next year. And the Kenya Open Golf is also on the European Tour. So slowly by slowly, more events are getting into that serious professional, standards. And would love to see also our teams, get serious professional management. Gormaya and FC Lopez are always, out with their begging balls because they have not really marketed, they have not built themselves into strong outfits in terms of marketing and corporate support, looking for corporate support. But slowly we're getting there. But I'm afraid we are still way out there, and a lot has to be done, especially from the management part of it.
Two aspects I want to focus for now: athletics and soccer. But let's begin with athletics. I think athletics does really put Kenya on a very good spot on the global sports. And I think that's what we're known for. And compared to other countries, we are talking about Brazil, soccer is okay. You go to England, they're very good in soccer, in these other countries. But you're talking about Kenya, pretty much you're talking about athletics. We still have a long way to go with soccer. So what's going on? Once in a while, we see these superstars come to the global stage, do extremely well, and see they disappear very quickly. What do you think from your perspective? What's wrong with that?
I think it's we don't have strong development programs, especially for the junior athletes. And again, there is the lure of financial rewards from the road races. You see, when a kid is 17, 18, starting a career, ideally, that athlete needs to do maybe another 10 years on the track, running the 5,000 meters up to the 10,000 meters before venturing onto the roads. Once you go to, before you get to road racing, you need to have the experience of the track. Like Eliud Kipchoge, he did quite a number of years on the track. He was a world champion in the 5,000 meters in Paris in 2003. Then after that, he got onto the half marathons and full marathon. Now he's full time on the road. But these kids rush onto the road because that's where the money is. When you go to the Chicago Marathon, New York Marathon, London Marathon, which is this weekend, you get very, very good money. You can get $200,000 as prize money. But in the other shorter racetrack, it's not as attractive, and the numbers are few, so it's very easy for people to break out. In China now we have dozens of races where Kenyan athletes win every other day. So they go there, they run a lot, they burn out, and that's how their career ends prematurely. Instead of having a focus on a plan. And again, another problem will be that the managers could be, some of them are quite selfish. They want to make sure these athletes runs a lot of time, a lot of races, gets quick money. The agent gets his 25% per race without looking at the longevity of that athlete. And once the athlete is burnt out, he simply goes. The manager goes and fetches another one because there's a lot of talent in Kenya. You lose this athlete today, tomorrow there's one waiting in the wings. So the managers are also messing up. And it's very, very sad to say that 90.5% of the foreign money of the managers for Kenyan athletes are foreigners. There are no Kenyan managers. So really, they're running the show.
That's very painful to listen. And trust me, I'm a fanatic of athletics. And David Rudisha, for example, put us on a global map. My all-time, I think, Vivian Cherwat, for me, that's the excellent athlete. Trust me, I even go on YouTube to watch this shows, and many more were coming. And I've seen a lot of foreign media and experts going to Kenya, particularly to Litein, to do more research so to have a good understanding as why do people from that part of the country do better. Then why are we not having Kenyan agents and managers, really, having had some of these sportsmen for such a long time?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part of the question clearly.
So you are mentioning that most of the agents are not necessarily Kenyans, or managers are not Kenyans. Why are we not having Kenyans manage Kenyans, having been a sporting nation for such a long time? I think we have Elias is frozen. Okay. So, okay, we are working on getting back Elias from Nairobi. I think that's the problem you do expect once in a while when you're doing this cross-Atlantic kind of broadcast. So that happens to be a problem. We're just talking about the state of sports in Kenya, and we're focusing more specifically on athletics as what's really happening there. And I was mentioning the fact that yes, athletes do a very good job, but most of the managers or agents are not Kenyans, and for that reason, it becomes a problem for them to develop. But also Elias acknowledging the fact that there are so many talented young athletes in Kenya, and I think that's a use and misuse aspect that most foreign agents or managers do, at least based on what is stating. I think that's a very sad reality. So in a moment, we're going to bring him back on so that we can continue that conversation. And if you are watching, meanwhile, don't forget to go to facebook.com and follow us on Facebook. Also go to YouTube, try to follow us there as well. And on Twitter, please follow us. I think that's important. If you have any questions specific for Elias and the sporting fraternity in Kenya, please post that question on Facebook comment section. We'll be happy to relay those questions to him as well in a few minutes. So I'm not sure that we have Ben. Do we have Elias back on? Okay, so we don't have him. Okay, so we do have him on. Elias, are you there? Okay. So we don't have Elias back. That's the problem. So therefore, we continue talking about that. And if you're sports enthusiast, I just okay. So we have you back on. I was just going to start reporting to the viewers what's happening in Manchester, as Manchester still is leading 1-0. So it's okay. So yeah, did you get the question, or do I have to repeat that? Okay, technical problem again there.
Kindly repeat.
Okay. So, are you there, Elias? So I was saying a moment ago that
I can hear you.
Why are we not having Kenyan managers manage Kenyan athletes?
Well, it's a complicated issue. It's really a lot of finances also because one is finances, and two, that's been these international athletes is really it's sort of it is what I'd call a boys' club. Maybe you find these people are the managers in Europe and US. They have good connections in all these road races, so they can enter the athletes easily, which is very difficult for our own people, to have those connections. And again, when an athlete is based in Europe, like most of them are, it's easier logistically because then they have their, sort of hotels or hostels where the athletes can go and stay over a period doing the race and then come back home. So you see, the agent in Kenya will be at a huge disadvantage because he or she has to book, a hotel, let's say in Europe, for the athletes to be operating from. So in terms of, capital, the foreign managers have better capital, they have better facilities, and they have this athlete will come and stay somewhere in Netherlands over even 2-3, but for manager, you mean getting hotel accommodation for 3 weeks for an athlete is pretty bad. Our managers have.
But okay, let's talk about soccer. Every time I'm in Kenya, trust me, there is no sport I go to where people are not talking about Chelsea, they're not talking about Manchester, Arsenal, or those foreign teams. But let's focus back home. Why are we not developing from the soccer perspective? I remember those heydays of JJ Masiga, Mohamed Abbas, Motego, all those great soccer stars. Why are we not moving ahead there?
I think, again, just like the case in athletics, the structures are not in place because ironically, we used to have what we used to call the Olympic Youth Centers, where athletes will be, accommodated and trained by specialized coaches. These most coaches from Germany, and it was very successful. You mentioned people like JJ Masiga and others. A lot of athletes to that particular system, and then from there, once you're academic, a path to the clubs a career. Don't have then because if you look at other countries, top clubs like Manchester City, you have a club, in a particular country that kids develop, and then the scouts have a look at them and get them onto the big league. We don't have that development of getting them into serious football. And again, we hope that our education curriculum, the new one, will allow, because the kids, there's too much reading, there's too much work. Look at in Europe, for example, in the States, if you have talent, you get into an academy where sport and education, and the people who are good in a particular sport are given more time to practice the sport. You go to class for a few hours, and then the rest 14, under 18, under 23, and then you progress. But in Kenya, we don't have those structures, and there's too much. Make a quick buck because the money coming through from FIFA, from the African Federation, and so yeah, we are serious about football. I'm sorry.
Okay. So clearly we're having a technical difficulties getting your audio there, Elias, but we'll try to do our very best to pass the message across. So one of the reasons as to why sports, I think, does well in the West and more so in Europe is the media. I think once the camera is somewhere, I think obviously that spotlights the socio-economic development for whatever that is. So if you're talking about Manchester, whatever, it really, the media does play a role. And you guys in the media house do also have a major role to play really in boosting sports and in the country. Do you think you have, quote unquote, the political will to do your job so that you highlight sports as a key indicator of social and economic development?
We are doing well in the Kenyan media, but I must confess that it could be better. The nation, I've taken a particular stand, would give 90% of sports to others who are really focusing too much on, like you mentioned, the Premier League. You get pages and pages of the Premier Kenyan. That is our spend. We cannot highlight the successes of bowlers, our volleyballers, our netballers, our athletes from the spring. We need to highlight more local sport. The Premier League, you can get it at the touch of a button. Like now you're watching Manchester City, but you wouldn't know what is happening in Wend or in. So we need our sport and not amplify, the Western sports that are already can help what we can coming through. Look at what Eliud Kipchoge has done, for example. He's been able to attract a lot of sponsorship because of his performance and because we focus his performances and his successes. So yeah, the media needs to do more to the local sport than focusing on Western media. I mean, Westerns, these are things you can watch on TV, you can get on your phone, easily. But getting the stories about that come out.
Quite frankly, sometimes I watch from a distance. I see athletes go overseas and they come home, win. All I see is them being received at the airport with some murusik and then immediately board a pass to the villages, and that is the end of their story. It's so disheartening. When you have somebody like David Rudisha, quite frankly, talk about Bolt, for example, Usain Bolt and David Rudisha on the global stage. Quite frankly, David Rudisha should be the icon on the international stage. But really, comparatively, it's like Rudisha didn't even make any contribution in the sports in the nation. That's so sad when you look at those factors. So I think the media has a role to play. And then if you look at countries like Brazil, it's because of sports that they really do pretty good. And I think you've traveled to so many countries around the world, so you understand what I'm talking about here. So, Elias, there are many sport. Go ahead.
Very good that you mentioned Rudisha and you brought it up because in athletes take higher. You find athletes getting into comment. A lot of commentators are former athletes, but in Kenya we don't have Rudisha, hey, look here, David, your career is almost over. You're a legend. You need to get into commentary. You know, you'll be paid a tidy sum by people like people. Because when Rudisha is on TV doing commentary, say on 800 meters, who will not listen to him? I mean, he's the best in the event, and whatever he says goes. So that progression from active athletics into post athletics careers, which commentating, doing broadcast, that's what our Kenyan athletes need to look into. That's why you are saying, for example, Rudisha has faded away and Usain Bolt is still getting endorsements. It's because of what they do outside.
So I hope those ones in thought, and I'm sure some of these questions, quite frankly, should be directed to the person in charge of sports, the minister. If we can have the minister talk to us, that'd be great. Now let's take a moment and talk about diasporans, because key point we're talking about, diaspora. What's the role of diaspora in all this? So what do you see? I know you've tried so many countries that come 100 plus countries around the world, but let's focus on the Kenyans in the diaspora. I think, and I always say this on this show, there are no better ambassadors of Kenya than the Kenyans who are elsewhere, not the guys who are posted in different embassies around the world. The Kenyans, I show you before the show, I show you this thing that we all have, right? The pride of the nation. All Kenyans really are interested in doing this. So talk to them. What do you think should be the role of the diasporans in developing sports in Kenya?
Looking for opportunities for our athletes. That's number one. I mentioned about the advantage that foreign managers have vis-a-vis our own managers. And one of the advantages they have is that they have bases of operation in Europe, in America, in Asia. So it's easy for them to get the Kenyan athletes and have them in an accommodation. I'd like to see a scenario whereby the Kenyans in diaspora, come up together and say, hey, look here, there's a hostel here. Why can't we put resources together, get a few athletes to come and enjoy good training facilities here, enter them into races like in Atlanta. I mean, the Peachtree Road Race, it's a huge race. And it's a good opportunity for Kenyans who are really developing. So if Kenyans in Atlanta could say, let's contribute, let's say maybe take care of a week's accommodation for 10, 15 athletes to come and run and make some money of it, that contribution will help, because the biggest problem our athletes have is accommodation, air tickets and training facilities. Also, Kenyans in the diaspora have good access to universities, quality education. You can get universities to do partnerships with Kenyan sport, so that you get a kid who is in Form 4, has finished Form 4, can get a scholarship. I know Paul Ereng, who is a former Olympic champion, is doing a great job at UTEP in El Paso, Texas. He's got a few Kenyans, and he's a coach there. So he comes to Kenya, goes all the way to Kisii, to Kilgore, is looking at talent, and then he brings them into Unity on scholarships. If Kenyans in diaspora could look for these opportunities, scholarship opportunities especially, that will go a long way in getting our kids to go there out, get exposure. Major League Soccer, MLS, is another big thing. US is hosting the World Cup in 2026. It's an opportunity for Kenyans to try and come and get into the Major League Soccer before it gets complicated. Right now, it's the best league I can say in the world to join as you are starting your career, because the others in Europe are a bit too competitive. You see, like Victor Wanyama is now playing in Canada, the Canadian franchise for the MLS. So these opportunities should be looked for, and the Kenyans in diaspora can really help. I know there are many who are lecturing in universities, some are in even sports faculties. They really need to think about how do we get our Kenyan talented young kids to come up there, because number one, they'll help them get the exposure, get the events to run in, make some money, and more importantly, get good education, so that after that they fall back and have a career. There's the current managing director of Rivertex, for example, the textile company, is a former athlete who was in Texas. He ran, finished his career, got into education, and now he's a professor at Moi University and managing director of Rivertex. So these are the stories we need to see, and that's how the diaspora can help by trying to get these opportunities.
Good point, and I think I have to admit the fact that we really haven't had such kind of forum where the Kenyans in diaspora really have an opportunity to have this kind of dialogues. I think what we've seen over the years, politicians who all the time come over here and talk politics, and they pretty much it's talk, and then nothing comes out of it. And I think this is the first time we here at KDRTV trying to engage with you guys, and going forward, maybe from your end, we'll be very happy to partner with you so that we continue making the story. And I'm sure that there are very many Kenyans in Atlanta. There are many Kenyans in Texas, East Coast. There are a lot of them. And if anybody's coming to the Duluth Marathon here in the state of Minnesota, I'll be happy to host them. I'll be very happy to help out, and so I think that would be great. So here's another question before I move on. Ben, the technical, my boss here, was asking a question about the Hall of Fame. Is so much attached to the fact that there are so many Kenyans who have gone before us, but who did incredibly good work. And Ondieki Mayoro, for example, Joe Kadenge, many others who passed on in the most miserable and the most abject way. Is there anything that can be done with the Diasporans or the media house or the politicians in Kenya to make sure that we have at least a Hall of Fame to honor those ones who really held our flag high?
Yeah, the ministry, the government has been trying to put up, an organization to look at the legends, to take care of the legends. It's very slow, and a lot more needs to be done. Even Athletics Kenya is trying to look at perhaps, coming up with a way of financing, because it's very sad, like you said, Nantika Mayoro. I mean, I spoke to him a few days before he died, and he was saying, reach out to the government, reach out to the president. I need to, pay my hospital bills. Actually, helped also contribute a bit to a few of his hospital bills. He passed on sadly, and others, many have passed on. You saw Joe Kadenge also passed on. There needs to be a structure really that takes care of these legends. First of all, defining who a legend is, and then look at how these legends will be compensated, will be kept, comfortable after doing service for the country. So I agree, a lot more needs to be done. And that really should be the responsibility of the Kenyan government, because these people fly the Kenyan flag when they go out there. And the government really needs to return the favor and say, thank you for what you've done. We are giving you pension for the rest of their life. But it's sad because you look at Parliament, for example, they only discuss about their own. The other day they were talking about getting pensions of, I think, 100,000 per month for the rest of their lives. They don't think about the other people. Very rarely do you get any debate on the floor of the House regarding sport. But they're very quick to get their impress, to get their travel allowances, to go out to the Olympic Games, to do quote unquote benchmarking, and they come back and they don't implement anything. So it's very sad. And we are really fighting to get the sports conversation, go all the way to the National Assembly. Let people talk sports, and that way we'll create more interest and more attention to sports. The national budget allocation to sports is always is paltry, really. I mean, it's hardly anything to talk about. So all these things contribute to the welfare of the athletes. If the budget is increased, and then medical care of these people taken care of, their accommodation, a permanent solution rather than handouts that are given every time an election comes close.
Said, and I think that's why I said before, the role of the media. I think the role of the media, it's really imperative that really media has a place really here to highlight the very best. I honestly shed tears when I saw Ondieki Mayoro. The old man was literally dying in a hospital, just not even half a mile from Kisii County government offices. The same politicians who could not even help him were the same politicians at his funeral. I just felt so bad that they did even bother to do that. And I hope going forward, KDRTV and other media outlets, if we could try to highlight really the role sports does play in socioeconomic development, that would be very, very helpful if we could. So before we get to the questions or comments from the viewers, here's a question for you. Why are Kenyans so fanatical with the English Premier League, Bundesliga, Series A, and not ours in Kenya?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know how to answer, because I'm also a keen follower of those leagues. Yesterday, we got a penalty after the game ended, Manchester United, and it was a controversial finish. Well, the league has been marketed well. They have the finest players in those European leagues. And also accessibility. I mean, they are all on television. It's easy to follow. The stories of the players are told. And that's what I'm saying. In Kenya, we have a challenge. We can get there as long as we, talk more about our own sports, about our own sports people. We've been writing a lot about athletics, and that's really helping. Like I said, Eliud Kipchoge is somebody that says like Cristiano Ronaldo, because now he's a mega star because of his achievement and the way he's been highlighted in the media. Like I said, in the next 1 hour, the plane is taking off from Eldoret, a special plane that has been brought by the organizers of the London Marathon to pick Eliud Kipchoge from Eldoret and take him all the way to London. So he's no longer flying commercial, and that's where we want our sports people to be. Let them be elevated to the status that they really deserve, and let's spend money on them. Let's write about them, and that way, we'll get closer to the leagues that we are following. These you have fans from all over, supporting every other team, including Leeds United, which just got promoted. You'll find there's a group, a Leeds United supporters team in Kenya. So these are because of basically how the leagues are marketed. The NBA, we follow the NBA quite a lot here in Kenya, despite the early hours that the games are on, because of the marketing again, and the way people like LeBron have been lifted to superstar status. People want to see them play, and really, the more we write about our athletes, our footballers, our volleyballers, netballers, rugby players, the more we'll elevate them into that sort of the status like you see in the Premier League, in League One, in La Liga.
So, from your vantage point, Elias, where do you see the state of sports in Kenya over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I'm happy to say the future is bright, in as much as the government has not delivered on the 5 new stadiums they say they will deliver, because sports really is about infrastructure. It's about opportunities. It's about developing issues, referees, athletes, media, all that ecosystem that survives around sport. At the moment, there's a lot of construction going on. The Kericho Stadium, for example, just got a new synthetic track. The president yesterday did give an ultimatum. He said by December he wants all the stadiums that are being renovated to be complete. So we'll have quite a number of stadiums in good shape. In Meru, Moi Kinoru Stadium, Elgeyo Marakwet, that's Kamarin Stadium. We have the Bukungu Stadium in Kakamega. We have the Mombasa Municipal Stadium, Water Stadium in Makueni. So all over the place, infrastructure is developing, and that's a first important step into developing sport. Once you have the infrastructure, it means you can have serious. You can even have Manchester City coming to play in Nairobi. Previously, it was unthinkable, but now with the facilities, I'm sure Pep Guardiola won't mind. He's been to Mombasa a few times on holiday, so it's easy to convince him to bring his team along. Same was also in, they go to Malindi very frequently. So if you tell them, bring your team, previously the issue was there's no good ground, but now the grounds are there. They can play at the Nyayo Stadium. I mean, there's fresh turf. It will just open to the president. And like I said again, there are bigger sports events coming up. In March next year, we have the Kenya Open Golf, which is part of the European Tour. We'll have top golfers coming to play, and also that will encourage our golfers to lift their standards. In July, with the World Rally Championship round being run in Kenya under the Safari Rally, again, all the top drivers will be here. They'll encourage our local drivers to do well. In August, we have the World Under 20 Athletics Championships at Kasarani. Once again, an opportunity for our kids to showcase their talent. So the more we have these international events, the more we have good fights, the more we'll get the talent coming up. So I say the future is very bright, and we just hope that the political leadership will focus a little more and fight for bigger budget for sports.
Okay. That's quite encouraging to hear, especially from you. I think your life is revolved around sports, so that's quite encouraging. And especially to hear the fact that those stadiums are now almost active, because the last time I was in Kenya a year or 2 years ago, more international sports, Kasarani was pretty much like a monument, and I'm happy to hear that. Kasarani, I think, Nyayo Stadium was under renovation, so it's good to hear that at least something is happening, and obviously we're wishing you guys nothing but the very best. And again, like I said before, I think the very best of Kenyan ambassadors are those athletes. I think they make us proud. They give us reason to smile anywhere we go around the world. And I hope if we can part and make sure we tell their stories, I think that would be a good thing for us to do. And I know most Diasporans would agree with me on this. So, Elias, before we let you go, I'm going to let you, there are many Kenyans watching you from around the world. And like I said, we appreciate you. I'm going to give you a minute to make your closing statement, talk to Kenyans across the US, across Europe, and that's around the world.
Yeah, thanks again for the opportunity. KDRTV is, doing a great job, highlighting the Kenyan stories. My appeal to Kenyans in diaspora is help the Kenyan sports people get those opportunities. Thank God I've traveled widely, like you said. Actually, hoping that all things go well. I could be in Hawaii in December for the Honolulu Marathon with a group of Kenyan athletes. And whenever I go, wherever I go, tell Kenyans, please help our sports people get opportunities. Don't give them fish. Teach them how to fish. Get them opportunities for scholarships. There are a lot of schools, a lot of universities, colleges out there that will be happy to have Kenyan runners on their roster of track and field, the track and field team. There are soccer players who could do well out and also excel in academics. As you know, Kenyans really work very hard. Once you give them half a chance, they turn it into a golden opportunity, to succeed. So talk to your universities, talk to companies, those ones, Kenyans in Japan, for example. The Japanese system, they employ athletes to work. For example, like Toyota, you could be, employed as an athlete. At the same time, you are taught a trade, maybe to be a mechanic. Like the late Sami Wanjiru was already an established mechanic, having run for the Toyota company. So if you're in Japan, watching from Japan, look for those opportunities for our athletes. If you are in a city where there's a road race out on running, reach out to the organizers and ask them, hey, look here, do you mind inviting these Kenyan athletes to come and run? Like in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities Marathon is a big one, and Kenyans are always winning. So get these opportunities. And I'm really, for today, I'd like to really emphasize or focus on scholarships, because you get a scholarship, you kill several birds with one stone. You develop your talent, you earn money through the circuit, competing, and most importantly, you get a career, you get an education that will lift you beyond your competition. And that's what you want to see. We don't want to see athletes who make money, become big names, and after their careers are over, or if they pick injuries, they have no fallback plan. So education is the greatest gift that you can give to our athletes, so that they can use it after their careers are over, after the Kenyan flag high, and making us proud. Let them exit, going to their sunset years with a lot of pride, showing that what they've achieved, and encouraging them to get into sport, because sport will open doors for them. It will give them future. We don't want to see stories of athletes dying misery, and their kids looking and saying, hey, look here, this sport dad took my mom nowhere. I don't want to get involved in sports. So let's mix sport and education by getting these opportunities for athletes. That will be my singular for this forum tonight.
Much. Thank you very much. I think that is, again, thank you. I think this will mark the end of it. Thank you. I think Kenyans across the US and around the world do get the message, and I think that's why we're trying to make this forum where we can exchange this kind of ideas, and I think that would be good. The key point is, because we've had for a long time politicians come here, and they're sponsored by many groups, and I think it would be good for us to move further from politicians, also sponsor sportsmen and the media as well, so that we can tell the Kenyan story in a better way than what we've seen in days gone. And by the way, I just want to note for you that go ahead.
Sorry, before you go, I'd also like to encourage you as in the diaspora, whenever there is a big race, let's say the New York Marathon, let this come together and celebrate with the athletes. You can invite them for dinner as a Kenyan community. Let them talk to you about their successes, their challenges. You see, somebody like Eliud Kipchoge has given talks all over the place, including at the Oxford University. So take an advantage and welcome them, because I've traveled with them, and one of the saddest things is that they arrive from the airport to the competition and back to the airport and away. They don't have they don't interact with the local communities. So when you hear there's a marathon near you, reach out, talk to these athletes, invite dinner, enjoy some meal with them, and celebrate our great country.
Here's what we can do. We are here for you, right? I know you have access to all these media personalities, sports people. Whenever you have a chance, please send them over to us. We'll be very happy to have them on the show so that they can highlight us. In fact, Eliud Kipchoge, if you can, I think he's made the nation so proud. If you let him come over, we'll be very happy to give him airtime, and that would be great. I think that's the contribution we do. And hopefully going forward, this is not the beginning or the end. It's the beginning of many connections and partnership that we're going to have. So thank you so much, Lars Makori from Nairobi. And I think your work in the Kenyan media and sports is incredible. I thank you. KDRTV, thank you. And I'm sure a lot of Kenyans abroad really appreciate the wonderful, wonderful work you've been doing over the years. And please continue to do so. Keep carrying the Kenyan flag as high as you can.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on the forum, and looking forward to more interesting sports conversations. And forget about these politicians. They come and talk, and once they get elected, see them again. But, sports people, they bring pride and glory to the country.
Yes, this is the forum for them. Let them know we'll be here for them, and we'll try to highlight the Kenyan story as well as we can. So thank you again for our viewers. That was Elias Makori, the senior editor, sports